Welcome back, everybody. Today we are filming episode 2 of the accountability sessions. We talked about a couple of topics last time, nothing too specific, just a little bit of a broad episode, if you will. Some of the things we talked about were, for Jake, building consistency, working on his nutrition, spending more time in nature, and editing relationships. And some of the things I talked about was moving out into my own place and finding a job. So we'll be covering some of those things today, and maybe any new things that have come up as well. And you can find these episodes on www.youtube.com/theacbsessions. That's www.youtube.com/theacbsessions.
You can buy one, get one free.
How you doing today, Jake?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah?
I've been making a fair bit of progress on my own projects recently, so that's good. I've kind of got into like a laser focus on a few things, which is really kind of necessary for what I want to do. I haven't reached or even attempted some of those things that you already mentioned, just because life happens. And I think, like we said before, or at least we've talked about, there's a lot of things you want to do, but trying to do everything at once is a bit of a tall order.
Yeah.
So just slowly integrating the next thing and the next thing until that becomes your routine or your day-to-day. I think that's the approach I want to do, because I've tried it before. We're just like doing everything. Yes, it feels good to go, yeah, I'm doing this, and this. And I'm trying to be all of the best version of myself all at once. But that's,
And I think in that process, you also realize that you can't be the best version of yourself if you're trying to attempt to do all those things at once. And I think also you lose track of your progress, because there's always that next thing you want to do. And then there's that one topic or anything that you were thinking about that you're now no longer thinking about, maybe because you're not keeping track of it, and it's kind of continuously getting replaced by a new thing, or a new, not necessarily obsession, but for me it can be an obsession sometimes whenever I find a new thing that I want to improve myself on. So I think really sticking to your goals, writing them down, following them and keeping track of them, like in the gym for me, for example. So I'll have either on my phone, or I've been thinking about writing it down on actual paper. This is the exercise I'm doing. This is the amount of weight I do on that specific exercise, and also the amount of repetitions I do for that exercise. And when I look on that, the next time I am, instead of being confused, like, oh, what did I do for this last time? I can't remember. I can just look down on my phone or notebook, whatever, and I'll be able to go, okay, for me to improve on this, I need to increase the weight by X amount, or increase the reps by X amount. And that transfers over to obviously other habits and things like that in life too.
Cool. And tell us how you've been doing. You've made some progress?
I feel like I've been making a little bit of steady progress, and progress is still progress, no matter how small. There are certain things like getting a job, which is quite difficult to do, but I've been sending out applications, and I feel like I've been on top of that, so that feels good. Getting replies is obviously the other side of that conversation.
Yeah. But you're showing up for yourself, which is, most of the battle really is like being consistent, not being discouraged, because and sometimes it is just a numbers game of just like playing the odds and applying enough and getting rejected enough until you get a place that you want to be in, that deserves you, all of that.
And being an advocate for yourself as well. So no matter how many times you get rejected, or someone says, you're not really the right candidate for this role, it could, you could take it like, oh, they hate me because of my personality, things like that, which is a trap that's quite easy to fall into, because it's easy to take things like that personally.
rather than professionally.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Um,
But you just got to take it on the chin and just be like, all right, fair enough. Let's try again somewhere else.
yeah, and I would even see it as there was a lady that said I think she was trying to be an actor. I can't remember who it was, but she was saying, I think it was like her auntie was also an actor, and she said, oh, how did you get whatever job it was? And she said, oh, I had to do 64 different auditions and fail them. And this lady was then like, wait, so all I need to do 64 auditions and then I'll find a thing, and that'll be like almost certainty. And then she was like, after each failure, she's like, oh, I'm a step closer. I'm one failure closer to getting to that 64th time, you know? And then it was a good thing all of a sudden, that little reframing. And she didn't even question it. It was like, my auntie's told me this. She's a successful actor. So why could I not use the same thing? And just seeing it as I'm one failure closer to being where I want to be, because you need to fail, obviously. I really love that. It's easy to forget, obviously, when you're in the moment or something hasn't gone quite right, or an audition didn't happen, or an interview wasn't had, or something like that. Then it's easy, like you say, to take it personally. But if you took it personally in that I'm one step closer rather than one step further, that's not the worst place to be in, is it?
Yeah, no, I like that way of thinking. I definitely, it's a mindset that is needs to be adopted through failure. So I think you only start thinking about this sort of stuff when you fail. Maybe the first failure could feel like the end of the world, and then you could, either be like, well, if I'm going to fail at this the thing I'm supposed to be good at for a lot of people, then how am I going to succeed in life? Or like you said with your example, which I find brilliant, by the way, is okay, this is one step closer to doing what I want to do, to doing what I love. And just that reframing of the mind is so important, and that's something that comes with just maturity, with age, I think. I don't know if I've had this way of thinking a couple of years ago even, and I'm 26 now, so I think this is, even for me, a new way of thinking within the last couple of years at most. So
doesn't that make you think that the number really doesn't matter in that case? And there's people that use their age as an excuse for things, and it could be I know, your parents when they get their over 50s Sun Life and a free Parker pen through the door, or something like that. Do you know what I mean? That I'm too old to start whatever, I'm too old to you're like, yeah, but you've also had all the life experience that other people haven't had. And then people who are really young, maybe they've got this drive to do whatever, and people say, oh, you're too young for X, Y, and Z. I remember when I was like 10 years old, my favourite band was already Pink Floyd, and everyone would say to me, like, oh, what's your favourite band? Oh, Pink Floyd. Oh, you're too young to be listening to that. I'm like,
says who?
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I like what I like. I just so happen to like this psychedelic rock, and that's a bit of me.
It's just like, why do we put these limitations not only on ourselves but on others as well? Like these expectations of, this belongs in this category. A 10-year-old listens to Crazy Frog or whatever instead of Pink Floyd.
Yeah, right.
That's what I was listening to, by the way.
Yeah, I think that probably was as well. But and equally, you can have people who are like in their 70s now, and you think, yeah, maybe because of the way someone looks or whatever, you might be into classical, which is a bit older, maybe even some rock and roll. And then when you find out, and I've definitely got friends who are in their 70s who are like full-on ravers, and they are like, defying the whole stereotype, which I love, and it just plays into that whole numbers are kind of pointless. But I think why we do it, to answer your question, is because we've just simplified things over time to be. It's the same as attaching a label to anything. It's like, if someone identifies a certain way, or if someone has a certain job, then they are their job. And this is why, quite conveniently, I have a, if the camera can pick it up, I have a Fight Club tattoo there, which says, we just had a near-life experience. And there's a scene in that film where this guy has, all of his stuff, and he's got a nice sofa, and he's like, well, at least I've got that sofa problem handled, and I never have to think about that again. And you have all these little things handled, and the short version is his apartment blows up and he loses all his stuff, and he comes to realise that I was so tied in with my things and my job and whatever. And he's like, you're not your job, you are not how much money you have in the bank, you are not your stuff, and you're not what other people think of you. And that for me was just like such a flip of the script moment that I was like, damn, this makes a really good point. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book that's talking literally about this. It's by a German author called Eckhart Tolle. It's called A New Earth. And the one section I was reading was about spirituality, and that the I, as in the word I, is tied in to the ego, and we identify ourselves within objects, jobs, all the things you were talking about. And that starts off when we're little children. So it doesn't really matter what the toy is, like whether it's an expensive toy or it's just like a stick, the thing that makes the kid cry whenever you take it away is, this is mine, this is my thing.
Yes.
No, it's not about the toy itself, it's about
that is a part of me.
Yeah, this is who I am, this is who I identify as, someone with this toy, someone with this sofa, someone with this job. And I found that quite eye-opening as well, because there's a lot of things then that I think about in my life. Okay, what am I very attached to, and if I lost it, how sad would I be, or how would I feel if that was taken away from me? So in essence, it's just talking about attachments and connecting that to the I, the ego.
Yeah. What is something that you are attached to that you feel would be harmful? Probably a lot of things. That's a big question. I know
it is a list. It's not just objects. I mean, obviously I got all my drum things. I've got my computer here. Stuff that contains things that are important to me, files or whatever on the computer, and the musical instruments and anything in my drumstick bag that has been with me for a significant amount of time. But then also people, so my family, friends, even people who I'm more acquainted to than friends with. I still find myself going. Door just magically opened. All right, that's fun. I still find myself going, these people are part of my life. They make part of my identity, and that's not something I think of on a conscious level necessarily. It's more of a subconscious thing, I think. But yeah, I think that would be my answer towards that.
Have you ever, of your own free will, removed something from your life to build that kind of muscle up a little?
Well, you've just reminded me of something. There's I wish I remembered the name. There's a Japanese woman and her saying is, does this bring you joy?
Marie Kondo.
Yeah,
yes,
Marie Kondo.
The minimalist.
Yeah. And she's great. And I was actually looking at, I think she's got a show on Netflix, I think it was Netflix, where she goes around to people's homes and has them, like a lot of them
declutter, basically.
Yeah, a lot of them might even be hoarders or people like that, and just has them lay out things in different piles and be like, okay, does this bring you joy? If it does, then keep it. If not, then why are you keeping it? Because that's something that's essentially weighing you down.
Sure.
And it's, whether you like it or not, it's in the back of your mind, and it's adding to that chaotic thing that's causing any sort of mental weights, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And her, as well as the guys, the Minimalists, Josh and Ryan, I've watched a hell of a lot of their stuff, and that first documentary they put out by Matt Diavella, who was directing it, and he also did the other one as well. This Is Now, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Both are amazing, and they really reframed a lot of things for me, because I think because of how my parents were, and they would just hold on to things because of they were attached to it, or their parents were attached to it. And when it comes to a point and you lose a family member and you have to clean out that person's house, and you're like, well, what do you do with all the stuff? And then I can't get rid of all their stuff. They've had it their whole life, and their mum and dad have probably had it there. You're like, where does the cycle end? And how long? Because it can become a burden, like really easily and quickly. And so I try and only keep the irreplaceable things. And then you're like, well, what's irreplaceable?
Yeah. What is?
And there must come a certain point where if you want to be free, you need to let go of some of the anchors. Some anchors are important. If you can instill in your kids good values and whatever, that's something they can take their entire life. But more physical stuff, try and move a sofa by yourself. It's really not easy. You ask someone else to help, it's a little easier, you can do it now. That's what happens when you share something traumatic or difficult or whatever. And what if you didn't have to pick the thing up at all anymore? What if you don't have to carry that on your back? It's like putting the weight of the world down kind of thing. And just one more point, and I'll be quiet about all this, but there was a point where my uncle and I loved Queen. I still do love Queen. Anyway, my uncle died 23 years ago, and I inherited his Queen CD collection. And I had a copy of, iTunes was coming out at the time, and I made a rip of all the CDs, and I've got a copy of everything. I've got everything on vinyl as well, and then you've got Spotify and Apple Music, and everything exists. And for myself, these CDs had sat in that cupboard there for years, and 2 house moves, and I'd never played a single one once. I don't even have a CD player to hand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're just sitting there, and that person isn't in that thing. And I was like, this is an opportunity for me to practice that letting go. And so it came to a point where this was a few years ago, I was like, I think it's time they moved on. And I just gave them to a charity shop. Yeah, but I thought, and I think maybe someone else can have joy out of it if I'm not getting anything.
That's what I was about to say as well. Yeah, if you imagine all the things you're holding on to that don't necessarily need to be held on to, that could give someone else joy. Yeah, I think that's something that can give you joy in turn, because then you'll have the potential knowledge that the things that have made you feel loved can make someone else feel like that too, even if they don't have that same story in terms of with your uncle. Yeah, thank you. It would be different for them in terms of this is an amazing song or amazing album,
and you'll always think of that person.
Yeah.
Whether whatever, it's just there's some things that you can't hold on to, and ultimately you can't take any of it with you. Just like I don't know if you heard, there was a guy who was like mega rich and he was obsessed with money, and he said to his wife and daughter, "I want to be buried with all my money." And then she was like, "What the hell? I'm going to be left with nothing. What do I do?" So he died. She kept his promise because she wrote a check with the exact figure amount that he had put the check in in the burial, and all the money stayed in the bank. You know,
Beautiful.
he's like, "What are you going to do? You can't take it." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, stupid.
I thought that was quite comical and pretty genius, actually.
Smart, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
So let me ask you, how do you think you've progressed since last month or since the last sesh?
Yeah. Like I said towards the start, I think that I've been steadily progressing, working on individual habits. It's difficult to see really long term how these small habits will affect you, and that's why it's in the moment you're like, oh, okay, if I do this, it's difficult, I don't know if I'm going to see any results, but I feel like I've got pretty good grip on consistency in terms of going to the gym, eating a little bit better than previous months, which is something I've been struggling with a little bit. Making myself more motivated to look for jobs and look for places to live in and try and just make something of my life, I suppose, is the way I would phrase it. So yeah, overall I feel pretty confident that if I were to keep going the way I am, it would just be a slow and steady progress, but over the course of 1 year would accumulate to something quite great. And that's for my personal life, and that's for my business life as well. I've been doing a lot of work on my company Envision.
Yes, you have Envision.
Yeah, which is really nice. I'm really proud of all the work we're doing lately, and we're discovering a lot of things especially about running social media and things that work, things that maybe don't work so well. It's just the beginning, really. We've got a lot of learning to do still, but that's quite an exciting thing to know that you have a lot to learn.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm pretty excited. What about yourself?
I think we're probably both in a sweet spot where we know where we want to go, what we want to do, and I think something becomes discouraging if it's too hard or too easy. Yeah. So I think we've got a nice middle ground balance of going, this is what we're aiming at, we're being consistent enough towards it, and we're going to keep adding things as we go. It's difficult to have that balance, but sometimes it's just good to reset, listen to your body. You had a day to yourself yesterday, which I'm glad you did, because obviously you need to reset, and what you don't want to do is overdo it and burn out, because that just kills passion.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and especially if someone's working a job to fuel the stuff they want to do for themselves, you're just going to burn out even quicker. So yeah, absolutely do take time for yourself, but have friends like you to be able to hold you accountable and crack the whip and say, right, it's time to get to work now.
Yeah.
And likewise, it's time to take a rest now.
Yeah, it's finding that balance, and it's difficult when you're constantly trying to improve yourself and like, okay, today's the day, and or tomorrow I'm going to do this, tomorrow I'm going to do this, and you're all motivated, and then you realize at some point, hold on a minute, when's the last time I took some time off for myself, for my mental health, for doing things that I don't usually get to do, like play video games or have long phone calls with my friends or cook my favorite meal that takes a lot longer than the usual quick 15-minute meals or something. Like a nice Sunday roast,
yeah.
But I think finding that balance is difficult, and it's taken some time to get there. But I feel like at the moment, this current moment in time, it is working. Like you said, we've got a bit of a sweet spot going on, and I'd love to take that into the next month as well.
Absolutely. I think the sky's a limit for you. I don't think there is a limit, in fact. I think you just keep going through space, through the universe, through the next one.
Yeah.
A few parsecs away,
Yeah.
which is a real measure of time that you just found out recently.
I have now. I thought that was just a Star Wars thing, but Star Wars is real life, right? We're in the same universe.
Yeah. Did you see How I Met Your Mother? There's a bit in there, and Ted is like, the only people who didn't see Star Wars was the people who was in them, because they lived the Star Wars.
I don't think I've seen that.
Anyway, you was asking me about my...
In terms of consistency, you were talking about nutrition, which I know you've been working on a lot lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The nutrition stuff, to start off with, that's something I just need to refine and be more consistent and knowledgeable about. We're each teaching each other things about nutrition and diet, and what's good and what's not good, and what's actually had research into it and what's not. And so yeah, there's lots of things I'm discovering. Lucky for me, you actually know a lot more than me regarding all of it, so I'm happy to ask you for your advice. And if you say, oh, that sounds like BS, then I'll do a bit more digging.
I'm not a scientist, but I try to do a bit of research.
Yeah, whatever, Andrew Huberman. Huberman Jr. No, he's a good guy. He knows his stuff, and
he really knows. I love that he brings on all these guests as well.
Yeah, and he links to the source, which I like as well, which is a lot of the problem with when we purely get info from podcasts or
social
whatever.
media.
Yeah, social media. And
it's because with the age of the reels and everything, you just see these like 30-second clips or something where someone's talking about specific type of diet or exercise or food in general or health or lifestyle, all these things. And at this point, I honestly just scroll past those, because I know something's either going to be severely exaggerated or anything to get reaction out of you. And most importantly, there's no citations whatsoever anywhere in the video or the description of the video. So I just prefer to ignore all of those, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the equivalent of a headline reader of a newspaper. Yeah. That's pretty much what it is. Taking something at face value, and then you go, oh, okay, it's not actually that. It's the opposite of that, or that's been massively exaggerated.
Yeah, or it's a half-truth. And then,
a half-truth. Yeah. And that's a big problem, because that's when you ask someone, I don't know, if you're in a debate and so, oh, why do you believe that? Oh, it's just the way things are around here. You're like, that's not an answer. That's just something that drifted in and is what you've learnt to know. Yeah,
it's something you've heard, and then you actually didn't take the time to do any research about it. You just kind of took it.
You were
face value.
You're a sheep, and you sheeped and repeated the sheep.
Part of the big sheepdom now.
Yes, you resheeped and reshaped. Yeah. Recycle. Rikiki. Anyway, cut that. So let me. I've got some notes here that I've made.
Cool.
All right. So from the first episode, I said about building consistency, reducing friction, and so let's start with those two. Building consistency, we've talked about a bit, and just adding new habits bit by bit rather than all at once, but still trying to make room for that to happen. Reduce friction. I was talking about being productive, and I have my space set up so that I can just create things, and there's less things to say, oh, I'll do that later, or oh, this isn't set up, so I won't do it now. So, but if I have an idea and I want to record, then I can just put it in. That's fine.
Yeah. And do you feel like that's been happening? Has it been frictionless? Or...
Dude, absolutely. Yeah. But I I've got this new project which I'll tell everybody about probably the following episode. But essentially, I had to create some adverts for myself and some projects, and I ended up doing 5 projects in 5 days. I did like 12 to 14 hours on these things every day, but I was like leaps and bounds ahead of where I was, and this is like this laser focus thing that I said was like coming into play. And because I have things set up in such a way that it's like streamlined and smooth, and there's no room for excuse, and when I'm not doing that thing and I've got time, and or if I'm walking to my day job or something like that, I will write down in my notes, what am I doing this evening, so I've got something to do. Before I go to bed, I'll write down, what am I doing tomorrow, because I often find that if I'm just getting up in the morning and I've got a day to work on my business, then if I've got to then come up with, I've got to do this, this and this, and it's not at least out of my head, it's just a lot more difficult. So that
creates a lot of friction. So that's something I've started doing as well recently. Is literally just before I go to bed, I'll catch myself, be like, oh my god, I need to think about what I need to do tomorrow, and I need to do that before the brain starts shutting down. I say quote unquote shutting down because the brain actually, I recently learned,
gets more active, right?
It's more active during REM sleep than
which is why
when you're
dreams are
actually
so
awake.
convincing, right?
Yeah. It's wild. I don't have the citations, unfortunately, but I did hear it on Andrew Huberman podcast, so I guess that is sort of a citation.
Yeah, we'll see. Wikipedia. Love Wikipedia.
Oh yeah.
Do you mind if I continue through my list?
Go for it. Yeah, of course.
Learn new things, and to be honest, I really haven't looked through these notes until we're just going through this now, and I'm just reflecting as I go. So to learn new things, I think that might be ways of handling things. Most recently, learning how I tick and think, all of that sort of stuff. There'll be some other like hobbies and bits of passion projects that I'm sure I'll learn plenty of new things from, but that's more of an overall yearly or lifetime thing to do. Is basically is to stay curious. I think that's a really important one, and you do see it in people, especially as people get older, like the creativity and curiosity is kind of beaten out of you. And so many people are like, I don't do whatever, I don't go out anymore, I don't I'm like, why not? Like, I'm too old. You're not. Just go and do it. It's as simple as that. You're literally the only one limiting your belief. Social media, don't look at social media then. Like, if you're such an adult and you've got all these skills, turn it off. Do you know what I mean?
It is confusing, isn't it? But I guess that is just the simple answer. It's the most in the comfort zone type of answer you can give, and it's the least the most frictionless answer. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. That's a good way to link it. That is frictionless. Yeah. And because it's easy, you do it. It's just you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to think. It's unconscious. It's hard to build new habits. It's hard to look at yourself and be like, well, okay, maybe I'm a bit stagnant at the moment. Maybe I'm not really doing much with my life other than go to work. If you have a family, take care of my family with the same routines, and barely make any time for myself, which is a pattern a lot of people tend to go in, I think. And because that's comfort, that's easy, it's the same routine every time. And to break that would mean change, and change is a scary thing. It is. And sometimes, well, not just sometimes, a lot of the time we self-sabotage kicks in. I think we probably talked about that in the first episode as well. And to admit that, oh God, have I had my ladder on the wrong wall the whole time and now I've got to start again? That's a scary thing to do, and to admit to yourself that maybe I was wrong, because
no one really wants to admit they've got a bad sense of judgment. So anyway, next on my list is to travel with friends. That is going to be something that will happen gradually, not just yet, because I've got a new business idea that's launching. So yeah, but that will happen, and I'm going to try and include it with this business idea. If I can like marry those ideas up, then we could be on for a winner.
I'm feeling the same about my business as well.
Oh, you are?
I'd love to even if we're just going out to like networking places or things like that, meeting people within the industry, if there's an excuse for us to fly to, I don't know, somewhere in Spain, even like in Europe or somewhere else,
Australia,
somewhere else across the world, then that would be awesome if we can tie those things together.
Definitely, that could be amazing. I also wanted to create and maintain a tidy workspace, which I hopefully have. That all ties in with like the frictionless. Is that a word? Frictionlessness.
The frictionlessness.
Which ties in with the frictionlessness. Thank you, thesaurus.
.com.
Of my workspace and workflow, also in thinking pattern, I suppose, because this is absolutely your workspace as much as anything else is, just as much as, you know, people who are, I think it was in Rogue One where they're in that jail and whoever it was says, oh, I know we're in prison now, but I sense you take your prison wherever you go. And that line always made me think, and I was like, oh yeah, because you are a prisoner of your own thoughts and imagination, all of that, and to break free of that. And
you don't have to be a prisoner, that's the thing.
No, exactly. And you know, I think about ego, or I have thought about it a fair bit, and I've done a lot of writing on it. And a lot of people will say ego's the enemy, but I do not believe that at all. I think just as much as anything else, if you nurture it, if you listen to it, and if it's saying, oh, X, Y, Z, or I'm anxious about this, that means something needs to change then. And if you actually listen to it and say like, oh, like what's up? Like where can we fix this? And then having that balance between acknowledging and then ignoring it at certain times. But I think it is there overall as a survival instinct more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. I think something else that ties in with that, which I've also got from the book I'm just reading, is that we spend a lot of time in our minds thinking and overthinking, and not enough time actually feeling. And by feeling, I mean feeling our bodies. What's happening within our bodies? How is our body reacting to certain situations or things that have happened, and if we were to spend more time actually feeling rather than thinking, then that can solve a lot of issues as well, because then you can be like, okay, I'm anxious, but why am I anxious? What's causing this anxiety, and where in my body am I anxious as well, you know, to that level.
Do you note that down for yourself, or you make like a mental note of I'm anxious specifically here, or whatever?
So this is something I can talk about. I've been journaling. I've properly started journaling, and I originally last year I had a like a specifically made journal book that had sections and everything, and I did it for about 4 months, I think 5 months, and I was like, this is cool, but just it was a bit of a mental drag, but this month, towards the I would say halfway through last month, not this month, oh wait, no, it was still in January, halfway through this month, I just started writing things down in one continuous go, basically, and I found that was a lot more productive for me than being like section A, section B, like what was the highlight of your day, what was something that you're thinking about, what do you want to achieve tomorrow?
Yeah. Was it like a stream of consciousness?
Yeah. So, well, the thing that I'm doing is I'm literally doing it first thing in the morning. So I've not even had proper time to think about anything yet. I'm still like groggy and just like,
It's like pure subconscious thought.
Yeah, basically. And I just go, okay, 15 minutes. I don't even set a timer, but I aim to do that kind of, and just put the pen down, don't think, just write, and then whatever comes out is what comes out, and that's decluttering the brain, which we talked about last time as well.
That's leads me on to a nice saying: you're never too old to take the bins out. What if you did that for yourself? How much better could things be? That little bit of extra maintenance, you know, because things get tidy. You don't see dust accumulate, do you?
No.
But it's just, if you don't do anything for a week, it's there, or a day, it's still there, just not so noticeable.
Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know what a stream of consciousness is, it's something you could try. And Alex and I have both done it for either journaling or songwriting purposes, which is going to be, you just decide amount of time, but say, for argument's sake, 10 minutes, pen to paper, pen can't leave the paper. Don't overthink it. You can't stop writing for the whole 10 minutes. Just see what comes out. It could be anything. You know,
and if you don't have anything coming out, then if you have to, just write or and the like filler words until something happens, and by the point you've written 4 or 5 ands, usually the case is okay, next trail of thought, or you know, next idea. And the most important thing is that you're not judging it whilst you're writing it down. So you're not thinking, oh, this is so dumb, why am I writing this, like this doesn't make any sense, or like this would maybe even upset some people if they read this, or you know, anything to that level. But you know, at the end of the day, it's just for you personally. It's for you to you don't necessarily even have to look back at it. It's just something to write down in the moment. Get it
out of your head.
Yeah. And you can look back at it if you want, because it kind of helps you to realize the state of mind you're in at that time of your life. But if you wanted to, you could just throw it away as well. It doesn't really matter as long as you do the exercise.
Well, some people do, you know, they write it out. If you stay in your head, you're dead, so they say, you know, so get it out, get it on paper, chuck it in the fire, boom, done, see you later.
Yeah.
Could be simple as that. And then just for the act of handwriting, not typing, it can just give you a little reset. You could try.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about something that was quite interesting last time as well, which is editing your relationships. Is that something that's worth talking about now? Is there something that happened, or?
Sure. So there's a couple of things that needed to change, I suppose, and I've absolutely heeded this one goal or lesson, whatever you want to call it, and to redefine what that is for anyone who's not seen the episode before. To edit relationships honestly and timely is to say, if there's a friendship, relationship, whatever, with whoever, that either they're not serving me or I'm not able to serve them, as you know,
as you put it so nicely last time.
Yes, thank you. And then maybe it's not worth the energy to keep investing in that relationship. If someone's not meeting you halfway, it doesn't have to just be a relationship, it could be an endeavor, or you know, if something is not fulfilling for you, or if you can't fulfill whatever else, then maybe it's time to let go or move on, or take a more restricted view of that. And so there's been a couple of instances where there's people in my life that aren't meeting me at the halfway, and so I put some distance there. Someone in particular, I put an entire stop to a friendship relationship with, because it wasn't quite right. And I let this person know why and all of that, and now I feel better for it, rather than going, well, if I don't say anything, then I'll save myself the pain of da-da-da. But, you know, I said the thing. I was true and honest to myself. That feels like what the best version of myself would do, is be honest with whoever. I'd appreciate it if someone was like, this isn't for me, and this is why. And I'd be like, you know what, fair play.
Fair enough, yeah.
And, yeah, and I won't apologise for taking the initiative to go for it. And I'd rather have someone feel a little bad right now than dreadful down the line, or myself carry it, whatever. Because you have got to take care of number one. You've got to. And that does mean putting yourself first, and that does mean being selfish, not in a bad way, but in a way that if I don't look after myself, then I can't properly look after other people.
Yeah, definitely.
And if people are doing their best, I think, when you're doing good for other people, and so I want to be at like max capacity to carry that all out.
Yeah, and there's only a certain capacity you have to give out love in different forms.
Yes,
so
before you're depleted.
Yeah, so you can't give that to someone who isn't, returning that, and you're better off giving that to someone who is capable of returning that.
Yeah, you can't make someone like or love you by giving them more of what they already don't appreciate.
Yeah, and I think a good sort of summary almost is that love is something that doesn't get earned. It's something that you deserve, something that should just exist within people. It's not something that you have to fight for or be like, please love me more the way I need to be loved.
Sure. I mean, you can communicate your love language or whatever it be, and I think love is a choice if we're talking purely about love, because if we're talking relationships and that sort of stuff, or friendships, love on its own isn't enough. You need connection. You need enough common ground, understanding. But to have a friendship or a relationship in any form with anyone, could be parents or family or friends or a partner, to even find someone that you're enough aligned with that you have got similar aspirations and drive, even if that all aligns, to have someone that you're going to grow with is incredibly difficult. And I'm going to compare with what you said at the start of this conversation, which was about when a kid has a toy taken away from them, and it's the kid identifies with the toy because there's something about the toy, they've attached part of themselves to. And I think similar in relationships, friendships, whatever, is, and maybe why people do grow apart, is because I think when you love someone or whatever it be, or it's because there's a part of you that you also see in them, and you love that part of them that you love of yourself. And if you've grown as a person, maybe that part of you doesn't exist anymore, but that part is still in the other person, but you can't. You don't love that anymore. You've evolved, or whatever. It's
the deaths, really. There's deaths within stages of relationships, and that's not like literal deaths, but it's the death of who a person was or who you were, essentially, and you've grown into something else. We keep changing. Change is a normal part of life.
Yeah,
and that means a part of you gets essentially killed off, and that happens every day. Almost,
and you have to, otherwise you won't survive, because sometimes part of you has to die if you want to carry on, and it might be my old way of thinking is keeping me where I am, so I need to cut it out, otherwise I'm just going to drown, and that's not what we want. No. So
another part of sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Another part of editing relationships, going back to that, is I think also the way, specifically for friendships, I'm going to talk about, is the way you view your friendships and what kind of not importance, but what kind of place they take in your life. So some friendships, like ours, for example, we talk to each other every day pretty much, and the level of conversation is quite deep at times, quite silly.
Banter is top tier.
Yeah, it's good, you know. And I'm not saying one type of friendship is worse than the other, and that's not at all the point I'm trying to make. I'm just saying that some friendships are a lot different, and I think you need to have all those levels of friendships. Some people you only talk to maybe once a month, and some people who you talk once every blue moon, or you know, and the level of depth that you talk in might not be the same as someone else. But I think the more I have these different kinds of friendships, the more I realize that all of them are equally important.
Oh yeah, for sure. To have that balance, and but this is the other thing. Say you get in a relationship, and a lot of people lose a lot of friendships because they're just with their partner, and they're like, oh yeah, it's all great at the start, and then people start dropping by the wayside. But you need to keep those friends, because you can't possibly expect to get all your needs and everything met by one person. That's just like not reasonable.
No.
So I think keeping those friendships, maintaining them, and like doubling down on them even, and making time is incredibly important. Because you know, when people are like, oh, so and so can't meet, oh, you know, life's busy, da da da, life will be over.
Yeah.
So you know, you better sort yourself out while you've got the chance to. Otherwise you're going to go, I wish, and that's what would kill me.
Yeah, and at the end you're not going to think about, you know, how much money you've made, or what kind of house you own, or what kind of car you own. You're going to think about the people that have been in your life, and the important moments you've had with those people.
Absolutely. Have you edited any relationships or friendships, honestly, timely?
I have, yeah. I have one friend who I have previously had a bit of a, I guess, confrontation almost, where I had to talk to them honestly and say, look, this is not working for me right now, the way that our friendship is. I feel like I'm putting in a bit of more effort than you are, and it's not really, to me, it's not really like that sounds like it's a game, almost like, you know, I'm putting in more effort than you, and pointing fingers, and none of that. It's just the way I was feeling at the time was my needs from that friendship weren't getting met.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that's just something that has stayed consistent. So while I don't want to lose that friend, I still said to myself that I need to set some harsher boundaries and be like, okay, for example, I can't be the one messaging first all the time, or sending pictures or songs. I love sharing songs with people, and if those don't get listened to or don't get looked at and just kind of get ignored, then you know, what's the point in me sharing something that I love, and that's just not going to get any love in return.
Sure.
So yeah, I suppose that I've kind of put that person a little bit more on the back burner, if you will, and I'll still message every once in a while, but definitely a lot less than I have been doing, which is fine. I'm okay with that, actually. I've come to terms with it.
I don't know if you feel similar or the same, but like when you put those things in place, it's difficult, obviously, because well, you want to be nice first of all. You don't want to upset anyone, but I find like I respect myself more, because I'm like, oh damn, I've actually got a spine.
Yeah, I've stood up for myself, and what my needs are and my wants are, and and I've enforced that, whether it was painful or not.
Yeah, for my own good.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you wanted to add?
I know we've gone a little bit over time, but I wanted to talk about what we wanted to achieve next month. If you have any goals in mind, or if you've spent any time thinking about it, so we can then maybe review that in the next episode.
Sure. So off the top of my head, I'd say just keep consistent, really. For myself, don't be discouraged. take a break when I need one.
Mm-hmm.
Take a break when I don't think I need one, but probably do.
Yeah. Nice.
Continue to edit my life relentlessly, because this is, the one thing we're in control of. I'm gonna report to you guys on how it went with the old job/no job,
I'm very
and on
excited
to the next
about
thing. Yes, so am I.
Yeah, and job-wise, I guess for me as well,
Yeah.
I will probably have something to report on next time, because I have sent some applications, so fingers crossed. We'll see. Anyways, what were you about to say?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Yes. It would be good to have a more consistent dietary plan. Maybe learn a little more about food types and what's good or what suits me, because that's the thing is having lots of resources online and books and whatever. There's contradictory advice everywhere, but really you can only do. It's not the right way. It's just the right way for you. That's
for
how I
you,
should say
what
it.
feels best for you. Exactly. Yeah. So I think with that in mind, I think we'll bring the episode to a close. Unless you have anything else to say.
No, mate, I'm all good. And you? You all good?
I'm all spoken out.
Outspoken.
Outspoken. Yeah.
out of speech, out of word.
Yes. Well, with that in mind, I'd like to thank everyone for watching this episode. This has been episode 2 of the accountability sessions with Jake and myself. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I have, and I'm sure as much as Jake has. And we will see you next month for the next episode at www.youtube.com/theacbsessions.
Akaba.
Akaba.com